In this video, I will go into the definition of the eternal or eternity. I will explain that eternal is not something that has started or will end, but it's something that has always been and always will be. Eternity is interesting because it has implication for our understanding of truth and in our practical daily life. I will come back to this at the end of the video. This channel is about the eternal world picture as it is described by the Danish author named Martinus. And the definition of eternity is based on his work. You can see more about Martinus' world picture in the description. So what is eternity? The dictionary defines eternity as infinite or unending time. So one perception of eternity is something that has started and goes on forever. That is, it has unending time going forward. We see this in some religions where the view is that you are born and can achieve an eternal life in some kind of afterlife that will never end. This perception of a life starting and going on forever is not how Martinus perceives and defines eternity. His concept of eternity is that time is unending, both in the past and in the future. He states that if something is eternal, it cannot have a start or an ending. His explanation is that if something has started at some point in time, it must have an age, no matter what it is or how old it is, and thereby it cannot be eternal. So on this slide we have a vertical line which illustrates the present or the now. We have horizontal lines which illustrates time units that goes on in the future, and the arrow at the end here shows that it will go on infinite or forever. And we also have a past which also have some time units. So here we have added some time snippets, which is essentially time going from the present to some point in the future. If you go to a specific time in the future, you will have a time slot or a time slice that has a certain age. The point here is that no matter how far you go out in the future, it will have an age, because it has a beginning. So everything that has started has an age as long as we are in the perceived world. This implies that something that has started at a certain point in time will remain timely. What we can conclude here is that something that's eternal cannot have a start because it will have an age if it has. And something that has an age is not infinite. So what about the unending part? This could go on forever, right? The thing that is here right now could be around forever. But what does that even mean? Well, if you go into the timely part, you have a start state. This state will change over time. How can you describe this state if it's infinite or unending? Martinus claims that the only way you can describe something that is infinite or unending is as something there is. As soon as you get into the details, you are in the world of change or in the timely state. How can something that has changed or is transformed be infinite? If it's not the same anymore, how can it be infinite? How can it be eternal? It is not the same anymore. So you can describe the eternal as something there is, but everything timely is moving or changes and cannot be infinite or unending or eternal. So we see that eternity is not a perpetuity, that is something that has started and will last forever. Furthermore, Something that is timely must have a start and will eventually have an end. No matter how we define it, it will change, and it will not be what it is right now. If it's not timely, if it's not changing, it's an absolutely non-changing state. And it's back to this idea Martinus has about something there is. We cannot perceive something without details. So everything that we are experiencing is timely. It is changing, it's movement, or we couldn't experience it. Martinus states that everything that is timely is essentially movement or change. Something that is eternal has always been and will always be. It has not started and it will not end. That also implies that something eternal does not have a prior cause or causality because it has always been there. It has not started. No one has invented it or gone through a thought process to make it. It has always and will always be as it is. That is what eternal is about. It is not only infinite or unending in the future, but also unending in the past. So why is this explanation of eternity as something that has always been interesting to us? If we want to look for an eternal world picture or an eternal truth, based on this explanation, it cannot have started. It has always been there and will always be there, and no one has created it. Eternal principles, functions, beings have and will always be. That has a consequence for the search for an eternal or absolute truth, and for our understanding of the world based on an absolute fixed knowledge. It has certain characteristics that we should be looking for. Something unchanging can become an absolute fixed point for our thinking and knowledge. That is what Martinus provides, and that is why he calls it the eternal world picture. I cannot go into all the details that Martinus writes about principles and other things in this video, but understanding that eternity is not something that starts and goes on forever is a really central point in his works. The explanation and understanding of eternity also applies to the concept of having eternal life. If our life is eternal, it is not something that has started and then goes on forever. If our life is eternal, it means it has always been and will always be there in the future. Eternal life has no start and it has no ending. An eternal life would of course be a changing experience, because without change there would be no experience and thereby no life. Change is the expression or sign of life. But the living or the I that creates the change or our experience can be eternal or non-changing. It can be above the timely, so to speak. This something or this I above the timely can be our main absolute fixed point for our understanding and be our departure for an understanding of the absolute truth. This is one of the main points in Martinus' work and something that I will come back to in future videos. So eternity does not start or stop. It is characterized by something that has always been. Therefore is not changing and absolute in nature. The eternal can become a fixed point for our life because it is not changing. Martinus states that our world needs a common fixed point and the absolute truth in order to create a peaceful world. So these thoughts are not just theoretically interesting, but have a relevance for our day-to-day life. We need to have a common understanding of the world to create peace, and the only thing that can be a true common view of the world is something based on the absolute truth. Martinus provides analysis of the living being as eternal beings, which eternal lives happen in cycles that alternates between light and dark, in order to keep an eternal consciousness and experience of life. An eternal experience because it has not started and will not end. Because how should it have started? Martinus argues that light is something, there is, it exists, and something that exists cannot appear out of nothing. But more about this in future videos. I started out with a fairly abstract topic for this video because it's really central in the whole work of Martinus, this idea of something being eternal or not being eternal.